Let me just start off by saying, if you see an action figure, somebody's card, don't ask them if they're actually going to buy it. I'm not giving the action figure a tour of my local Target. It is definitely coming home with me. I get it. You're an awesome, rabid, hardcore collector, but honestly, you need to chill. I don't know if you draw the line at taking figures out of somebody's card, but I definitely do. But anyways, all jokes aside, it's just something kind of interesting that happened to me a couple of weeks ago. Collectors are definitely a very crazy bunch. But anywho, let's get straight into what I wanted to talk about for today's video. And honestly, I was kind of going back and forth on whether I should talk about the new Fallout McFarlane action figures or the new Justice League of America action figures that just recently got announced. But honestly, I am definitely a hardcore gamer at heart, even though for the most part recently, growing up, having children, I definitely don't have the time that I did back in the day to actually game. I definitely love me some RPG gamers, and Fallout is one of my all-time favorites. So I wanted to really quickly talk about this little wave that McFarlane is releasing for the Amazon exclusive Fallout series that's supposed to be coming out, I believe, in like the next couple of months. Now, let's just get straight into it and get my gripes out of the way, because I am so disappointed with McFarlane at the fact that these are like basically non-articulated small little mini statues. They're about 6 inches, but I believe from what I can tell, maybe they have like a swivel here and there and some arms and things of that nature, but they're not, or I should clarify, definitely not as articulated as like his DC Multiverse line or any of his Spawn action figures. I am definitely disappointed. I felt like he could have taken full advantage of some of the figures that he's already released and kind of just repurposed those. Obviously, he doesn't have exact body molds, but he could use like limbs or certain parts of the torso, reuse those and repurpose them for this line, because like I said, I really wanted an articulated Fallout action figure wave, but unfortunately these are minimally articulated. And when I say they have the most basic minimum articulation, I definitely mean that. I mean, these figures have no pose abilities. So like I said, just a minor little gripe. With that out of the way, let's actually get into the wave, because it is still very exciting to start getting some new Fallout merchandise, especially considering that I don't think we've received like a proper wave of Fallout action figures. I think they had like some small little 5-inch figures that they were selling a while ago. They've had Funko Pops and a couple of other little items here and there, but nothing quite like this. Even though the articulation and the posability is definitely not there, you can definitely see that there is quite a bit of sculpted on detail. There will be a Vault Boy, Lucy, a Ghoul, and Maximus. If you want a collectible that kind of steers closer to the source material, you would probably be looking at, for example, Vault Boy, who looks like he came straight out of the video game. Doesn't look like something that would be included in the show, but I think there are a couple of scenes here and there where you do see a Vault Boy just kind of hanging around. But like I said, this one does look more like the source material, whereas in the 3 other characters definitely feel like that they have that Amazon flair or the show flair rather than the video game aesthetics. It's also worth noting that one of the characters is just the Ghoul. I'm not sure if that's something that they did on purpose, or maybe they just don't have the name of the Ghoul released just yet, but in the video game, a Ghoul was just a Ghoul. I mean, I don't, it was more of a reference to a type of individual or somebody that had been exposed to harmful radiation, rather than it being a title or somebody's name. So that was really interesting. I hope that in the show they actually give him a proper name, but only time will tell. So for the time being, they do reference him as just a Ghoul or the Ghoul. You also have Lucy, who has that kind of classic blue and yellow Vault-Tec uniform. So anybody that was within a vault would have that type of uniform, and usually it would stand out in the Fallout universe, especially right after you emerge from an actual vault. And then you have Maximus in that illustrious, beautiful power armor. I have to say that every single one of these, aside from Lucy, at least in my personal opinion and according to the promotional images, All of these have some very intricate details, and I think because they didn't have to spend so much money on articulation and figuring out different schemes and figuring out different articulation points, I think that really helped out in terms of the budget, because you can definitely see, like I said, a lot of molded detail, a lot of sculpted detail, and then the thing that stands out the most is that painted application, which just, it looks phenomenal. A lot of shading going on everywhere, and like I said, I think the budget was kind of all thrown towards that, because the figures are only going for $24.99, which, like I said, is just an absolute bargain, especially considering the size of these figures, the girth, and then they do come with a base as well. Like I said, honestly, the least impressive one, at least in my personal opinion, has to be that Lucy figure. It definitely comes off as a little bit plain. It's just missing the minor little details that I think they could have thrown in there. Not the biggest of issues, but still something worth mentioning. Another big thing to me, especially if it's one of these like semi-statue figures that has minimal articulation or no articulation, has to be the pose that McFarlane went with here. And again, I go back to the Lucy figure, it just really doesn't resonate with me. It's kind of a really weird stance. I would have rather had her in just a really cool pose, maybe upright with a gun at her hip or something similar like that, just something a little bit more iconic. I feel like it's just a really weird pose that she's going to be stuck in for, you know, the remainder of her existence. So I would have preferred something a little bit more dynamic, especially considering she is one of the figures that has the least amount of detail, obviously, aside from the Vault Boy, that is. It's also worth noting that there will be a 3-pack, which is supposed to have like alternate head sculpts. So if you're interested in picking that up, you have to buy it as an entire pack. So it's really up to you what versions you want. And like I said, at the $24.99 price point, I think these figures are definitely adequately priced. Having said all of that, I'm really hoping that this isn't the end of McFarlane playing around with the Fallout universe. I mean, yes, we are getting something based on the series, but I'm really hoping that he eventually gives us some articulated figures, whether they're based on the video game. Obviously, I would much rather them be based on the video games, but even if they decide to go with something from the series, I really hope that they do something that is similar to the DC multiverse line, potentially having some build-a-figure, maybe a power armor is the build-a-figure, and then the rest of the figures are maybe like ghouls or vault dwellers or something along those lines. Or how about having an articulated Vault Boy? That would be absolutely insane. The potential here is just through the roof. There's just so many different figures that McFarlane could offer us. I think this is hopefully just the very beginning, because like I said, everything kind of fits in perfectly with McFarlane. There are some really big, heavy, hunky creatures, and McFarlane just loves giving his consumer stuff like that. So like I said, hopefully this isn't the end, but just the beginning. And it's also worth mentioning that this is under that Maniacs line, so anything under that movie Maniacs from McFarlane is just going to be basically essentially a statue. There's not really much to them aside from that. So like I said, if you guys want to pick these up, they're $24.99. I believe they might be sold out here and there at some retailers, but this feels like a wave that's going to be readily available. As far as him mass producing these, I'm not sure if they're going to be figures that hang around for too long. So if you do happen to see them in store, pick them up. This feels like one of those waves that is just going to fly off the shelves. You'll still have your chance in person or online, but I feel like it might not be one of those lines or one of those waves that just sticks around forever. So definitely keep your eye on that. So as I mentioned, phenomenal wave. Very excited to see what McFarlane has next for us in terms of that Fallout universe. But as always, this is just my personal opinion, my personal take. I'm very interested to see what you guys have to say. Let me know down below in the comments section. Hit the like button, subscribe, and definitely hit our playlist, because we do have a ton of more action figure content in there if you guys are interested. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.